Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Sneak Attack. I am Reed, your host. Alongside
Mike.
Mike is also
I'm here.
Yeah, we're here to talk to you for a little bit. So we've got exciting news, as hopefully all of you know. Today is the launch day, the very first day of our Kickstarter campaign entitled Sneak Attack Liberation. It's for a brand new graphic novel that will complete the story of Volume 2. Volume 2, the podcast, unfortunately, was not able to be resolved in the way that we would normally expect it to be. But this graphic novel will start off exactly where the podcast left off and then tell, hopefully, a satisfying ending and really put Volume 2 to bed. So what we wanted to do is just kind of chat about the graphic novel, the process, what led us to Kickstarter, and just all this stuff, all these different things that have ultimately got us to where we are today. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and we're just going to chat about this, and hopefully you guys will get some new information and some new answers that maybe you had questions about.
So I'm super excited.
Yeah,
This
very hype.
I feel like this has been something that we've talked about during the podcast, like even season 1, or volume 1, I should say, of just like, this would just be cool to do a book of some sort.
Yeah.
And then once we got Adam involved on some smaller things like the cards and the illustrations, like, oh my goodness.
Right. Getting him involved for Volume 2 early on was just kind of one of those like light bulb moments, I feel like. Because for those of you that don't know, our illustrator, Adam, who is amazing, he did all of the race and class layouts that we kind of teased the start of Volume 2 with all the way back in, what would that have been, 2018 or something like that. So he's been involved with kind of setting the look of Volume 2 ever since the beginning.
Yep. So I'm super excited. This has been such a fun project for me to be a part of. We had to take 2020 happen, COVID hit, a lot of things just had to push, pause. And I think this has been something that's just been really motivating for me and just really life-bringing to just continue to work with Reed and work with Adam and still get to tell the rest of the story. I've seen a lot of the story. So, I'm going to ask some questions to Reed today. The first one I was going to ask is like, what's the ending?
How does it end?
Let's just get it out there. And then if you like the ending, it's like, well, then I'll just get the book.
That's how it goes.
That's
right?
how it goes. That's how I heard people like books. No, but I've seen the kind of conclusion and I was like, oh man, like my head just exploded. Like, I'm super excited to like see this full thing just fully illustrated. The lore that's gone into this is just amazing. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. Like, this is just going to be an awesome experience. Whether this doesn't go, like, we've just had a great time and super excited for you guys just to look through all this stuff. So again, after this episode is over, go in there, check it out, tell your friends, tell your parents, tell Santa Claus that you want this. And
there will be a link to the Kickstarter campaign in the description for this episode, just a heads up. So you don't have to go far to find it.
Kickstarter. So one of the things I wanted to ask, I feel like being the DM of, the GM or whatever it's called now, who knows, being that person and then having to transition over to a graphic novel is just a totally different way of telling a story. And since we had a pause in the middle, it's not like you could be like, all right, now I get to like tell this whole new thing in the kind of medium of a graphic novel. How did you kind of transition from this kind of podcast sort of medium to a graphic novel? Like, what was that kind of process for you?
It was a little bit trickier than I anticipated. And like, a lot of what I've got written right now is what I would consider like very, very fleshed out outlines.
Right.
Not all of the book is written yet. I mean, it's like 3/4 of the way done. Right. But I kind of approached writing the podcast from a very visual perspective anyways, because that's just how I am. For some of you might know that like a good portion of my life, I thought I was going to make movies for a living. And the reason why Josh and I even became friends is because we were both into filmmaking.
Right.
And so I have like a very visual mentality when I'm creating anything in general. So the way I wrote the outline and the campaign for Volume 2 as a podcast, as a D&D game, was very much in from a perspective of I'm picturing what I'm writing as I'm writing it and just kind of visualizing how it plays out.
Right.
And so really the biggest transition for taking that from a podcast to a visual medium of the graphic novel was really just going into more detail as to what I'm visualizing and putting that on the page. Whereas before, I'm setting up scenarios and then I have a little, almost like a bullet points of, well, if they do this, then this happens. And then I just kind of describe it the best way I can. It's, again, still trying to keep the visual mentality intact for the audience at that point, because I want them to be able to visualize and the players to be able to visualize what I see in my head. So now it's just really taking that and expanding upon that further. And there's been a lot of really great tools that I've found as well. Like there's several blogs of like how to write a graphic novel and how it's different than a regular novel. And really just, I'm kind of taking the approach as well as leaning on Adam a little bit, because I don't want to make one of those graphic novels where it's like a page of text and then like two panels of artwork. I want it to be like, I want to actually embrace the medium and make it a graphic novel.
Right.
And so really leaning on Adam and working with both you and him to get the layouts right and really create the flow of the page even without any text on it. That's been something that's definitely been a new challenge. But I think we have 3 like what I call like demo pages for the Kickstarter. If you go to our campaign page, you can see all of them there in the little outline. And I think just working with Mike on the layout for those, you have really helped me kind of almost re-understand how I need to communicate from like in the written text, because I'm looking at these pages. I go like, oh, it'd be like, I'm already seeing like, oh, I really need to be conscious when I'm writing to make sure that I'm almost over communicating in text, but under communicating in context, if that makes sense, because Adam fills in the context. I really just communicating the core idea. And so it's been fun, but I think like seeing these 3 pages has been enlightening and eye-opening a little bit, because it is such a different process, but just refinement too. Like I wrote the outline in like 4 or 6 days, something like that, when we decided we wanted to try it. I just like knocked it out, and I was writing nonstop. And then I went through and I started reading it again. I was like, this is crap. Like I need to fix all of this.
Yeah.
And so just grinding it down to the bare essentials and then letting you guys make it look good. Like that's really been my approach.
Yeah. I think I know one of the stretch goals is like this behind the scenes kind of booklet, and I think that's going to be packed with a lot of information if we get to that goal, because I think, like you even said, like these 3 pages that we've done so far has been really just fun to figure out. Like Reed has this amazing story, and then we have me that's kind of looking at it from like a design kind of like outline structure kind of standpoint, and then we have Adam who's just adding the illustration to it. So it's like all of us kind of need to play this dance together where it's a give and take, and then we just like, as we're going through this stuff, there's like so many ideas like, oh, it'd be cool if we did this, or oh, if I wonder if we told it in this way, or do we need to say this, can we visually show this, which I think like it's so interesting to do that on 3 pages, and then when we actually get into the meat of it, it's like, oh, this is going to be like 100 plus pages of like, and how do we do that? That's going to be an interesting, because for me, when you had talked about in the video, you guys should watch the video. It's awesome. We did it at a couple different places, but it's at my work, and we had this cool like background for like this space thing. So we had a lot of fun shooting the video too. But you had talked about in there like Watchmen kind of being your like go-to on like a graphic novel.
It's my favorite graphic novel of all time. It's so good.
So you've let me borrow that, and I've gone through like tons of pages. For me, like I've never really gotten to graphic novels, so I'm just like, books for me was like Harry Potter and like just cruising through it, and then seeing like the movie, and then looking at something like Watchmen's like, oh my, like this is like a whole, like you can just marinate on a page. And it's like, is that kind of what we're going for? Is like really like, man, you could stay on that page for a while, or is it like, let's just...
I think it's certainly going to be like, there are going to be certain elements, at least that kind of the way I have it mapped out so far. There are going to be certain pages, big full page splash pages of just lots of detail that you can spend minutes on just looking and examining every little thing. There are also going to be what I like, Adam and I have talked about it a little bit, almost like 9-panel, like just 3 vertically, 3 horizontal, 9-panel pages. That's just going to be almost like a conversation back and forth, just like boom, boom, boom. Similar to what you would expect in a regular novel, just 2 characters talking. But rather than try and fill up the page with something like a new and interesting different pose or angle or something like that, really just keeping it about the dialogue, because there are times where a conversation between 2 characters needs to be what drives the story forward. However, there are also moments in Watchmen where Watchmen is a very complex novel. Like for this being our first attempt, I'm not going for something nearly as ambitious as Watchmen. Let me make that very clear. But Watchmen is unique because there's actually like 3 stories happening simultaneously. You've got like the main graphic novel story of the superheroes and Dr. Ozymandias and all of these people together in present day. Then you've also got a version of like in a book inside the novel written by the original Night Owl, who, like, I think he hit the book in the lore in the universe. He wrote a book called Under the Hood, and then there are chapters from Under the Hood at the end of every graphic novel chapter. But then there's also a graphic novel in the graphic novel, called Tales of the Black Freighter, and that is. Like that sets up something to do with the ending, which if you haven't read Watchmen, go read Watchmen. It's so good and it's so worth it, and it's very poignant even today. So there's a lot of depth in that book and a lot of moving pieces, and that somehow all converge at the end because Alan Moore is a genius. But so I would say in terms of just like that scope and that broad approach of storytelling, probably not going to do anything like that. Sure. But there's certainly going to be one of my favorite, for those of you that have read Watchmen, one of my favorite sections is Dr. Manhattan. I said Dr. Ozymandias. Oh my gosh, his name is Dr. Manhattan, and Ozymandias is another character. Okay. I was
like, it checks out.
Yeah.
I'm not stopping.
Mike's not going to call me out because he hasn't got there.
I haven't got that far.
No, Ozymandias is a character. Dr. Manhattan is another character. I got very excited for a second just talking about Watchmen, as you can tell. But no, there's a sequence where Dr. Manhattan goes to Mars. Okay. And it's a very introspective look, not only at what he's like, where his mind is at and what he's doing in that moment, but it also has a ton of flashbacks before he became the Blue Man and everything like that. And it's him with his girlfriend and how like the experiment that went wrong that turned him into who he is. And because Dr. Manhattan, he sees time all at once. Right. And so this chapter is so cool in that it's like he's talking, but it's cutting to all these different sequences in time that kind of give you an insight into how his brain works. And so that is very narrative. It's because it's just him on Mars, so there's not a lot of him talking to himself. It's very introspective, almost self-narrated. And so I kind of want to take a little bit of the self-narrated approach with one of the characters for Liberation, but also not lean on it so much that the art becomes secondary. Right. So I'm kind of I'm kind of taking that one chapter of Watchmen and expanding on it a little bit, and just kind of making that almost like a core theme throughout the book. Right. That's the goal, at least.
Right. No, I know we've had like a ton of ideas already. Mm-hmm. It's like there's so many ideas. We also need to like get through the whole book first and see like the full, like, I know that was one of our things that you and me were like, we'll get like through one page after like a month because we'll just like spin our wheels or like, oh, we could do this. I know one of the things was like, Chip's crossword puzzle. It's like it'd be awesome to actually have a full page of like an actual crossword puzzle.
You can do Chip's crossword,
yeah. Like fun, just kind of like Easter eggs and that. But I think just the process of seeing that full outline, still telling, because I know of seeing that kind of full story, it's still an awesome story that needs to be told, where we don't want to get too hung up on it's so hit or miss on like, oh, what is this thing actually trying to say? And that's like for a graphic novel, right? It's so much like hitting you on the pages where it's like you still got to go. There's still a story to be told. So I'm super interested. Like I am super excited to kind of like get into the meat of it.
I feel like that's when, because what I have written is, it's just words on a page right now. We have 3 example pages of what Adam is capable of, what you're capable of in terms of layout and design. Right. And then how my chicken scratches and my little word blobs, they just kind of blot the page. Right. And so what I'm like, I feel like we almost will establish the tone and like the routine of what the reader can expect as the book is being made.
Right.
I think all of us, Adam has a extensive knowledge of comic books and graphic novels.
Right.
He's a huge Batman guy, and he's read, just hundreds of comic books throughout his life. And so I think between he and I coming in with like an idea of what we're used to, but then I'm really excited because since you're helping specifically with layouts,
Right.
you don't have those preconceived ideas of how a comic book should be. And I told both Mike and Adam that. I said, if we land on an idea that makes sense to us, but like is outside the norm, I'm still going to lean on what makes sense to us.
Right.
Because I don't care about telling, I'm making it exactly like Watchmen or making it exactly like anything else. I want it to be our own thing. But of course, I'm going to take inspiration from things that I love.
Right.
And so having this mix of me who loves a very specific number of like a specific set of comic books or graphic novels, Adam who loves a lot of different things, but then Mike who's not really been in that world, I think that presents a very unique opportunity for us to do something different.
Right. So I had kind of talked about this before, but I think one of the things that I initially thought of or had a question about was, so when we talk about movies, so like Harry Potter, for huge Harry Potter fans in here.
That's
Reed
us.
loves the Harry Potter.
That's us.
So let's say Harry Potter, you get halfway through the movie and it's like, oh, we're done. Now you can get it in a book. How do you take, or how do you balance like a Lucky with a Josh, me with Chip? How do you bring those personalities in to the graphic novel that people who have been listening, have been a part of our journey the whole time, will still get that personality for the character in the graphic novel? Where are you going to be like, what does that look like to you?
Certainly tricky because,
Right.
Everyone within Sneak Attack knows that we've kind of transitioned to this graphic novel. I've reached out to everyone independently and said, hey, I might be reaching out to you later on because I have questions about like, what would T's reaction to something like this be? How would Ethan react to this, and Lucky, and blah, blah, blah. So I am kind of leaning on the players who played those characters for so long to kind of enforce that. But at the same time, the story of Liberation is, if you have to approach things differently for a graphic novel than we did the podcast. I'm gonna just like rip off a Band-Aid right now and say that it's gonna be different than what you're used to.
Yep.
And I think it's different, good, not different. Like it's not good because it's different. It's good and it's different.
Right.
Because I don't want to like dismiss anything that we did on the podcast, because I'm very proud of the 48 episodes we got of Volume 2, and of course everything preceding that. But I made a very conscious decision because I knew where the story was going to go as in the podcast. And I knew that I had, 50 to 75 more episodes of wiggle room to kind of finesse the story to where I needed to be. Now I've lost that.
Right.
I don't have that. And I'm not going to make a 500-page graphic novel. So really what this ended up being was me stripping down everything that I felt was non-essential to the story of Volume 2 as a whole. And as I was starting to strip everything back, one thing became increasingly obvious, and that is that like the focus of the story started revolving around one specific thing.
Right.
And so I'm not going to go into any more detail than that because I think any more would actually start to spoil things. But because it's focusing on one specific thing, it's going to look different. And so when I'm writing dialogue for Chip or when I'm writing dialogue for T, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes and their mental state, especially Chip's, because his has changed so dramatically, and Lucky's has changed so dramatically over the course of just these two and change seasons. And but I think I found a good balance of kind of capturing their essence. Because I wrote something for T, and when we went through the outline, I told Mike and Adam, like, T will say this, and it was uncomfortable for me to like read it because it was kind of cringy. But then I thought to myself, like, oh no, this makes perfect sense for T though, because she is that awkward, uncomfortable, like we'll say something and no one laughs type of character.
Right.
I was like, okay, cool. If no one's laughing, then it's working.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of taking that approach, and you guys have done such a good job over these last like year and a half or so of making these characters feel very realized. And so I have so much history with the characters to go off of. Even Dan, who I appreciate.
Shout out to Dan. We love Dan here.
His character story with Ethan has, even though like Ethan as a character has been kind of one note for volume 2.
Sure.
His character episode really opened up a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I get to use some of that motivation and some of that stuff, which even not all the players knew before volume 2 ended or the podcast ended. And I get to like help that enforce some dialogue and some things that he talks about with Chip or with other members of the crew. So, but ultimately the goal is at the end of all this, I want to be able to send a copy of the novel to all my players and say, read through it. If anything doesn't feel right, let me know. Or if you're reading this and you have an instinct as to like what Lucky would say here and it just doesn't mesh, let me know, because I want to know that stuff.
Right. I guess that goes on the other side of the coin too. We have famously not had, I guess, canon art. Right. We have, for me personally, I've literally, when people are like, what does your character look like? I'm like, I don't know. You know,
whatever you want them to look like.
I don't have this thing in my head. Like when people ask me like, hey, how do I draw your, I'm like, whatever, like go whatever you think.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love seeing all the different, now we actually have canon art to this where like, do you feel like people are like, oh my gosh, that's the way that looks? I had something different in my head.
I think there's going to be some of that.
Yeah.
I think it's the equivalent of you read a book that you're really invested in, and then you see the casting for the movie. You're like, that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, I never would have cast so-and-so as the love interest. He's a little twerp. So, I mean, it's not everything could be Harry Potter where they just like crush every casting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every character was so perfect.
Yeah.
But I think based on, like we were mentioned earlier, the preliminary artwork of the races and the classes that Adam did at the very beginning before Volume 2 ever kicked off, I think if you saw that and kind of had that image in your head while you were listening to the podcast, what you see on page won't look too dramatically different.
Right.
And I mean, T looks like an Ardent. She has her own flair. She's got like the longer hair, the bionic eye. She's definitely more like what I would call like rough and tough, just because she has a mechanical background.
Yep.
But to me, like that's exactly what I picture when it's just us at the table playing. Chip, of course, has the most challenge, because how do you make a robot emotive? And so I think Adam actually took a really interesting approach where he gave him almost like moving parts, like for the mustache, the mouth, the eyebrows, but they're fixed. So it's like a welded on piece, but it actually can move and show some expression. So that's been really good for me when I'm writing, because I think to myself like, oh man, how's Adam going to convey like happiness or sadness or anything in a robot that has, can emote, but it's very limited in terms of facial expressions compared to like a Lucky or an Ethan.
Right. Well, and that kind of comes back to the audio, right? Where that is that's the trade-off, where you talked about like, it's not better, it's not worse, it's just there's trade-offs where in the podcast you could get the emotion of a Chip through me having a different sort of voice, where me and Lucky can have a tough conversation. But I think if we had that conversation in the book, it's like, well, how do you get an angry Chip?
Right.
You can get it with a pose or but yeah, the face,
that's what sells it.
That's what sells it. And I think that's a challenge for Adam. That's why he gets paid the big bucks to figure that stuff out.
That's right. We just bring Adam problems. Adam solves the problem.
I just make the characters. You figure it out. Yes. So that's good. I've always just been excited. And I think, like you said, like Adam's been a part of this from the beginning.
Right. Like
Adam's been such a fan first and a cheerleader of just our podcast. And then like his amazing style, we're like, please, we need you to just do anything. And so I think that'll just be a nice thing when people start seeing this art, that it should feel familiar and part of the Sneak Attack team, that it wasn't like, oh, we got some random person in Chicago who we had to pay a bunch of money to get some artwork done.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to open the book and it's going to look like Calvin and Hobbes drawings.
Man.
I mean, shout out to Calvin and Hobbes. Bill Watterson, I think, is a guy, amazing comic. But we already have kind of a style established, and I think if you're familiar with it, it's going to feel right.
It's going to be like Dilbert.
Like Dilbert.
Remember Dilbert?
I do remember Dilbert. There's going to be a dog that just complains about everything.
Yeah.
It's all going to be set in an office building.
That's a book people are really wanting for 2021.
Gary Larson, we could get Gary Larson to do it. Farsides is coming back.
Oh my goodness, there's so much synergy. The other thing I was thinking of, which is kind of cool, is so like Carl's Repair, some of that stuff, and I think for me that's such an interesting. I think I've seen before on like who was it? Toys or just Pixar in general, right? Like they just go into like there's full branding.
Right.
This is if you see a building, a gas station, like there's a brand behind that. It's not just like watercolored out. Like they have all this stuff like, and I want to bring a lot of that into the world of Liberation. And like when you see T with the Carl's Repair shirt, even though that's like a meme,
but it's legit.
But it's legit. Like
we modeled the shirts that we sold on our website as like this is what it looked like in the world. You
right.
know, we made it up on the spot in that one episode, which is a classic, and it turned out to be like one of my favorite shirts. And it's like that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's we took this thing that manifested organically and created like birthed it into real life. And so when you see it on the page, it's funny because it's a callback, but it's almost like self-referential at that point.
Right. My anxiety has made it onto a shirt where best in the space industry.
Best in the space industry.
One thing is, so the Liberation book, is that going to recap what has happened so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was a big point of emphasis for all three of us is when like, we're doing this on Kickstarter, and of course, people are going to go to the Kickstarter just because it's going to gain some traction from our fan base early on, and I'm aware of that. And what I didn't want is for someone who had no idea who Sneak Attack is, no idea who we are as creators, to go on this graphic novel and be like, why the heck would I care about this? I mean, it might look cool, but like, what on earth is this thing? And so we're going to have like a story so far. It's going to be anywhere from 5 to 7 pages that really just hits on the key points of what's happened for the first 48 episodes. And Mike had the great idea of having like episode numbers, sort of like if you want to get caught up and actually listen, this part of the book or this part of the story you can find in episodes 4 through 10,
right?
Or this part of the story you can find on 12 through 15, and so you can go back and listen to the key moments from the podcast to get yourself geared up for Liberation, the book.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's going to be a fully illustrated, same quality, same style, same everything as the rest of the book. It's just going to give you the story so far. And then once that's done, it'll jump right into how, like, effectively episode 49, quote unquote, of how the party reacts to the events of episode 48. And then we take off from there.
And those are some of the pages that are in the Kickstarter now.
Correct.
The 2 pages, what, Helios?
Yep, on Helios 2.
Yes.
The 2 pages on Helios 2, as well as the interaction with Ely, the beacon. Those 3 pages are going to be part of the 5 to 7 pages that will make up the story so far.
Right. And those are a little bit different. I think once we actually get into, like you said, like an episode 46, things are just going to run different. We had to like highlight everything in one page.
Very difficult.
So it feels like we got to go.
Really, we're moving along. And so the idea is to provide, I think, a greater context to the story as a whole, but these are just 3 examples of what we've got.
Right. And if you haven't heard of Sneak Attack and you're listening to this, welcome.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You should listen to the episodes up to the point of this Liberation book.
Yeah, episodes, it'll be episode 1 through 48. I don't exactly remember when episode 1 of volume 2 came out, but you can go easily find it. It's on every podcast platform, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, obviously. And yeah, just go check it out, because it's, like I said, it's only 48 episodes, so it's a pretty quick, they're an hour or less each.
Right.
So it's a pretty quick way to get through them. Just put it on while you're at work and off you go. Looks like the first episode came out in January of 2019. So there's a nice little welcome to volume 2 episode that kind of tells you everything you need to know. And then January 25th, 2019, episode 1 is when volume 2 begins. And then it goes all the way through episode 48. And so you can listen to that, get caught up in a hurry. And because there's going to be about a year, about 12 months between when this campaign begins and the book should be in your hands if we're successful. And so that should give everyone ample time to get familiar with everything, the story, and who we are as creators, but also what the story is as a whole. And then, just gear up to get the book in your hands.
So I have no more questions.
Okay.
I asked a lot of questions because I honestly didn't know.
That's great.
That's me. Me at the table and me here. I don't like to write things down. I just put gum and paper and draw things that people like to.
And the number 17.
And the number 17. What does it mean? Who knows? So again, super excited.
Yeah.
Please check this out. This has just been something that I think, again, we have the talent here to execute, but it's still, there's always this area of like, when we first started the podcast, like, we don't know
Right.
if this is going to work. And it does. And we hope this same magic is going to happen with the graphic novel. It's just a huge pleasure to be a part of it. I'm excited. And I think one of the things too is like, this is just something that we know we have a wonderful fan base. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we're like, we have to do this for the fans.
Right.
This is just a story that we want to tell. I know that was just something that was really what drove you, whether it was a graphic novel, whether it was a puppet show, whether it was
interpretive dance.
Yeah. Whatever the medium, I'm glad we figured out it was going to be a graphic novel. Yeah. But this was just kind of the thing that, again, is just coming out of a place of wanting to finish the story, wanting to see like where these characters go and where they end up. And it's going to be really exciting. I think if this goes great, and I hope it does, like this could open a lot of other opportunities for us to continue doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
Who knows what that'll be? I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, Reed, anything else?
That's it. Just really appreciate everyone, and not only their longtime support as fans of Sneak Attack, but willing to take a risk on us and say we like Sneak Attack enough, we like the story enough, and I want to see this conclusion as much as everyone else. I want to see this get the ending it deserves, and so just the that you guys would contribute to the campaign means a ton. Sharing the campaign on your socials, word of mouth, everything like that, just means the world to us, honestly. So thank you guys not only for your longtime support, but also for this new support and this kind of different endeavor.
Yeah. We love you guys.
Thank you.
And we will see you in space.